Hello dear viewers, and welcome to a new episode of Business Insider. I'm your host for tonight, Mohammed Abdirahim, and tonight we'll be talking about the role of the central bank in boosting economic growth, and we'll be talking about the monetary policy. Of course, that's the main task of the central bank, to control the monetary policy. The relationship between the central bank and banks here in Egypt, the challenges of economic growth, and again the role that the central bank plays not only in economic growth here in Egypt but also throughout the region, and especially in the vicinity of its African continent. And we are delighted to have with us here in the studio Dr. Amr Hamid, economic consultant, who is also a visiting professor at AAST, the Arab Academy for Science and Technology. And thank you very much, Dr. Hamid, for being with us. It's a great pleasure. Allow us, first of all, please, to watch a report about our main topic for tonight, as we always do. Thank you very much. Dear viewers, we'll watch a report about our main topic for tonight, and we'll come back and start our discussion with our dear guests with us here in the studio. Please stay with us.
100 days of pioneering projects in the fields of corporate social responsibility and financial inclusion. The projects include eliminating surgical waiting lists, developing university hospitals, establishing the first national liver transplant center, developing technical schools, opening bank accounts without fees, expanding access to microfinance, and promoting financial literacy. In alignment with the presidential directives to provide diverse programs, activities and services to enhance the welfare of citizens across all governorates, the Central Bank of Egypt, in collaboration with the banking sector, participates in financing and implementing numerous key projects in the fields of corporate social responsibility and financial inclusion. These unwavering efforts fall within the framework of New Beginning for Human Development Initiative, launched by the Ministerial Group for Human Development in the presence of Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, which will run for 100 days. Governor of the Central Bank of Egypt, Hassan Abdullah, emphasized that the CBE is keen to support the state's endeavors across all sectors by launching a series of leading initiatives to advance society and improve the citizens' quality of living. The efforts undertaken by the CBE in the New Beginning for Human Development Initiative encompass a wide range of activities that are executed by the CBE's CSR department and funded by the banking sector. These include implementing projects in the health and education fields, most notably eliminating waiting lists initiative in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and Medical Emergencies, Genetic and Rare Diseases Fund. Development of University Hospitals Initiative, which involves funding the construction of new hospital buildings, upgrading existing facilities. An initiative to establish and equip the first national liver transplant center in Egypt and Middle East at Al Mansoura University. The Your Health is a Commitment صحتك أمانة initiative in collaboration aiming to provide early detection service and free treatment of breast cancer. An initiative to upgrade 100 specialized technical schools in collaboration with the Federation of Egyptian Industries and the Ministry of Education. An initiative to provide fully, partially funded scholarships in several Egyptian universities. The CBE's contribution to the New Beginning for Human Development Initiative extends to various activities carried out by the financial inclusion sector, encompassing financial inclusion events during September, October and December 2024, in addition to the participation of the banking sector in the Decent Life Initiative.
Thank you very much, Abir Hussein and Rasha Abdel Hamid, for this report. Back in the studio with Dr. Amr Hamid, the economic consultant. Dr. Hamid, the role of the central bank in monetary policy, first of all, and that's a huge, important role. talk to us about that role and how to make the balance between, deciding the interest rate, on the interest rate, comparing it to the inflation rate, and trying to adjust all of these difficult mathematical dilemmas.
Okay, good. How much time you have for me to answer this question? Maybe we need
a few minutes.
2 weeks.
Really?
Okay. In a nutshell, let me just try to simplify it to your audience. Let's start first with something called the economic policy of a country. And this is very important. And the economic policy, in general, it has two wings: monetary policy and fiscal policy. We're not going to speak about the fiscal policy because it is the responsibility of the cabinet, the government, Dr. Madbouli and his team. So that's a different story. And then monetary policy is the second wing, which we're going to speak about it tonight. It's the responsibility of the central bank. So in a nutshell, the central bank, the head of the central bank, Mr. Hassan Abdallah now, is equivalent to Mr. Madbouli on the fiscal policy. Together, both of them, they have three objectives: development and growth, that's number one; number two, how to control unemployment; number three, inflation, how to control inflation. And then we can add a lot of other things, such as, for example, the quality of life of the citizens, things like that. But it's mainly three objectives. As I said, the central bank is only responsible for that part.
The monetary policy.
Exactly, which has to do with the foreign exchange rate, the interest rate, the supply of money, the money supply. Mainly these are the three arms of the monetary policy. But if we're going to speak about this, it's very important. I'm just trying to put everything in very simple terms for the audience, because I know that most of your audience are not specialized. So another very important point is to differentiate between two very important specializations in economics, something called macroeconomics and something called microeconomics. And the mindset is totally different. It's like differentiating between a heart surgeon and an eye surgeon. So if you go to medicine school, you can become a heart surgeon, or you can choose to be an eye surgeon. And an eye surgeon will never be able, as you know, to take care of, to undertake heart operations.
Naturally.
Exactly. This is a misconception in Egypt. We're mixing both. We think that if you are a economist, you can do macroeconomist jobs. This is very difficult, and that's a big problem. Why? Because very simply speaking, the objective of the macroeconomist is the three objectives that I told you about, which is growth and development, unemployment and inflation.
That's macro.
That's macro, of course. That's the country as a whole. Micro is make profit. That's it. So if I work in a bank, I want to make profit because my main objective as a banker is to satisfy the shareholders. Okay, I want to make my employees happy, of course. I want to make my clients happy also. But my main objective, who is going to promote me? It's the shareholders of the bank. So profitability is the objective of microeconomics, besides other things.
Right.
And assuming in both cases, macro and micro, that ethics is basic. Of course, for both of them, ethics is basic. We cannot go into this for sure.
And of course, there is always coordination, right, between the two wings.
It's very important, yeah, of course. But this is when we come to the role of the central bank and the banks, because this will bring us into a contradiction between the role of the central bank, who is responsible for macro, which has nothing to do with profitability, and the banks, which is microeconomics, which is 100% making profits to the bank. So this is the big dilemma between both of them, and this is the contradiction. So am I clear? Or
yes,
it's very important to explain this, because we don't understand in Egypt the difference between micro and macro.
No, it's very important to define and to give the simplest definitions and to talk about the terminology.
Exactly.
So I want to tackle the three responsibilities that you mentioned of the central bank. And let's start first by growth.
Yeah.
The one you set as number one.
Yeah.
But of course, achieving growth is also the responsibility of the micro and the responsibility of the government as well.
The government, yes, but micro not necessarily, because micro means managing a bank, profitability, managing a supermarket, profitability, managing a company, a big or small company, it's still profitability. So it's different. But the government, of course,
and this is why there must be continuous, strong coordination between the central bank and the government.
Yes.
On a day-to-day basis.
It's very important. And what is very important also is to put the heart surgeon in the right place and never put an eye surgeon in the place of the heart surgeon. I can give you so many examples if you want, but you cannot get someone who spent all his life in microeconomics, that's a mindset, and then you ask him when he's 50 or 60 years old to suddenly go into macro and do the surgery. You see, this is a big problem.
That's a very important point you're raising here.
Exactly.
So you're telling us that normally
Yeah.
the central bank governor should not come from a banking career. Is this what you're telling us?
I can give you examples from the Fed, which is one of the most important central banks in the world, the Federal Reserve.
The most important.
One of the most important. Yeah. The Bank of Japan is also very important. In the Fed, I cannot think of someone who comes from the banking sector who became the governor of the Fed.
Right.
Yeah, it's macroeconomics.
Federal Reserve Chairman.
Yeah,
the Federal Reserve Chairman.
In Japan, I would think that maybe 30% only, but 70% were never bankers.
Okay.
So this is very important because it's a question of mindset. I mean, if you bring someone with the mindset of profitability and you want him to come and manage the economy of a country which has nothing to do with profitability, what is he going to do? This is a big dilemma. So and let's go now a little bit deeper into your question. So what is the role of the central bank? That's another dilemma that we have in Egypt. The role of the central bank is to regulate the economy, not to manage it, not to direct it. Regulate, which means devices, and you play with them like a very professional tailor, without really interfering in the day-to-day or the management or the board of the banks. Because at the end of the day, the board of the banks is the responsibility of the shareholders, not the central bank. So that's another problem that is really affecting the banking system in Egypt. There is too much interference from the central bank. So if you really want to resolve or improve the economy of Egypt, number one, let the central bank leave the banks do their jobs. It's too much regulation and interference in the day-to-day activities of the banks. That's one of the challenges that we are facing now. And let's take it even push it a little bit further and say, okay, so Amr, what are the challenges? What is the challenge is that you kind of, I don't want to say lose confidence, but the banks, the customers of the banks will tend to feel that somebody else is controlling the relationship between the customers and the banks. So what would you do if you feel that there is someone interfering between you and your wife?
Okay.
It's the same, because the relationship between a customer and his money is exactly like the relationship between a gentleman and his wife. It's a very private relationship. There are always problems, of course, but at the end of the day, it's very important that the customers will start thinking, okay, I will not put that much money in the banks, I will go into gold. I will not put that much money in the banks, I will go into real estate. And that's what's happening in Egypt. Real estate is booming like crazy, as we all know that, and that's not healthy at all for an economy. People tend to every now and then go and rush like crazy to buy gold and buy precious metals and I don't know what other things. It's why? Why do you think the customer base of the banks are trying to find some other resorts? It's because the confidence is a little bit not as it is supposed to be.
Okay, you mentioned a lot of very important points, so I need to follow up, please, on some of these. First of all, you said that you don't want to see much interference from the part of the regulator, the CBE in this case, in the work of the banks. But the regulator is responsible and bears responsibility. So if the regulator sees that, you know, there are trends that would hurt growth or unemployment or inflation, or something that would hurt the overall economy of the country while talking to the government, again, the coordination, then the regulator has to interfere, because if the regulator leaves it just, you know, to banks, many of them private, some of them public, and they are only thinking about profitability, this might not necessarily mean the best interest of the citizen.
This is why I said regulate but not interfere, because you have tools, you have devices in your hands as a central bank that you can play with on daily basis, which is, again, let me repeat them again, the interest rate, you can sort of, which is the discount rate translated into interest rate when we're speaking about the relationship between the banks and the public, and the exchange rate and the money supply. Which means printing money, but it has to be based on solid economic grounds. So you have all these tools in your hands, but when you sort of interfere in the day-to-day management, this is not...
That's understood.
Exactly.
So you want regulation, not interference.
Exactly.
But there has to be continuous contact between the central bank and, of course, all banks.
Of course.
And sometimes negotiations, I guess.
Daily, daily, of course, yeah, that's very important. But what is much more important is the mindset of the central bank. The mindset has to be macroeconomics, not profitability, because it's totally different.
Okay.
Let me give you a, sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
I was going to give you a very quick, very simple example, just to simplify things. For example, from a micro standpoint, which is, let's say, a company, a private company, salaries and wages are considered costs in the profit and loss statement of any company, any one unit, any micro company. For the government as a whole,
it's part of the budget, the fiscal...
yeah, but as a government, do you want to see salaries and wages going up or down?
I would think up.
Of course. That's, you see the contradiction between the mindset of the micro and the mindset of the macro.
Very good example.
It's very important. It's very important. But when...
But of course, if wages go up, then inflation would go up, and you know...
That's a different story. That's a different story.
But inflation is part of the... controlling inflation is one of the most important roles of the central bank. The Fed, for instance, because you mentioned the Fed and you said that it is the most important in the world along with the BOJ. So whenever we hear about the Fed, 90% of the time the Fed is talking about raising interest rates, cutting interest rates, when will the next interest rate decision be made? And so it seems that all of the task is the interest rate.
Exactly, but by how much? That's
By how, and when,
of course. But when we speak about the Fed, you speak about maximum maybe 0.25% increase or decrease. Something. This is what I mean by regulation. It's a very sensitive device.
Of course, the story changed a little bit in the past few years. We saw something crazy going with interest rates in the world, with the wave of inflation and
but the Fed itself, but the Fed itself will never play for more than a percentage of 1%. It's always a percentage of 1%.
Right.
But again...
Okay, so now, you mentioned another very important point when you said, why are people rushing to, I'm quoting you, the real estate market, which is going crazy. That's your words.
Of course, yeah.
So, I'm not...
It's a fact, by the way.
Okay, I'm not objecting. I'm just quoting you, because you're the one who said it. You're the expert, not me. So, okay. And you said, why are they rushing to buy gold and so on?
Sometimes, yes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And they're not, and you were, and the fill in the blanks should be, and why are they not putting more money into to get deposits and rates from the banks?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe the answer to this is because of the performance of the Egyptian pound over the past few years. That's why, entre parenthèses, yes, I mean the pound lost a lot of its value in the past few years. Yes, due to a lot of external and some internal factors. But maybe this is the explanation, so they don't, you know, have the full trust in the pound. Although the central bank has been very successful in killing the black market and controlling the, not controlling, but overseeing a free flow or an elastic, what they call an elastic exchange rate process.
Yeah, but again, quoting you, entre parenthèses also, why even the deposits in other currencies going so much down, not only in Egyptian pound?
Okay,
it's a
very
question.
important.
Yeah, so you know the main challenge of the Egyptian economy is one word: confidence. Only confidence. Yeah, this is basic. Why Egypt is
people
not...
have confidence in real estate.
No,
I mean,
no,
that's the culture. That's the mindset. It's been the case for decades. The real estate.
People, yeah, okay. That's how
part of our culture.
You're looking at it from the other side of the coin. People have confidence in the real estate. That's how you see it. I see it from the other side of the coin is that they have less confidence in the banks. So what would they do?
Although Egypt has...
Let me answer your point about why people are afraid of the depreciation of the Egyptian pound, and I told you why not even put it in dollars in the banks. The idea is that with the loss of confidence, the people, they don't want to put it not in... I don't want to say it in a blunt way, but I mean, why is it going down, the deposits, whether it is in Egyptian pounds or in other currencies? Because you can always put your deposits in Egyptian banks, in dollars, in euro, in Japanese yen, in lots of other
Saudi Riyals.
It's all going down. It's a question of only confidence. It's very important to establish the confidence. And the confidence is lost because another not lost, sorry, I mean going down. Okay.
Shaken.
Because of another very important defect, which is the laws and the judicial system of the banking system. Because now the percentage of...
So you need to see some legislative moves when it comes to banking.
Of course. There is a big... The central bank has to start, not only the central bank and maybe the government, they have to start putting new laws, new judicial regulations for how you can, for example, confiscate the accounts. Because now, in any country, to confiscate somebody's account, it has to be a judge ruling decision.
Right.
But as we all know, what happens here is that any government body in Egypt can just go and confiscate an account. And then you go and live your life for 2, 3, 4 years until you prove who is right and who is wrong. Is it the tax department? Is it the custom duties? Is it sometimes some public bodies like I don't know what?
But that very rarely happens, and when it does,
you will be surprised.
There are usually enough suspicions.
But this is again a question of confidence. The rules and it's a very, by the way, it's in the constitution. You know what the Egyptian constitution states clearly that nobody has the right to confiscate an account in the bank except the judge. And by the way, you can get a judge decision passed in 24 hours. The rapid judge courts. So why don't we do it like this? Because what happens is that in the tax department, most of the tax people are graduates of commerce or accounting. They did not even study law. And they have so this is very basic. This is something that has to be, there should be a remedy as soon as possible to establish the confidence in the system, and then you will be able to attract foreign direct investment, FDI. Very important. What we are attracting sometimes, every now and then, is hot money. Hot money, in, out, jumping. Where is FDI that comes and stays? Why it is not really achieving the volume that it should achieve for a country like Egypt, especially that we have the basic infrastructure. We have the basic infrastructure.
And we have spent a lot on the infrastructure in the past few years.
Egypt now at the moment has one of the strongest infrastructure in Africa, one of the top 2 or 3, one of the strongest infrastructure in the Middle East. It's some regulations that we have to adjust these laws according to our constitution.
Okay, everything is interlinked.
No, but let me just add one thing. And the same thing applies to another very important sector of the economy, which is tourism. Why Egypt is not #1 tourism in the whole world?
Although it has more than half of the world's treasures, yes.
Why tourists, they don't come? As they're supposed to come. I mean, we speak about 10 million, 15 million. Egypt should be...
we should never be happy with that.
Minimum 100 million. Minimum 100 million. The same problem, confidence. That's our main challenge. Sorry to...
No, you've raised some very important points. I'm just trying to catch up to you. But everything seems to be interlinked. So back again to the point when you said you want to see more money pour into the banks. Well, maybe again, and you said that the Egyptians are now putting less money in banks, even in other currencies, not just the Egyptian pound. Maybe I'm trying to find a logical answer. Maybe the answer is because regardless of the rates you get on your deposits, you're never catching up to inflation. And the only thing that catches up to inflation and sometimes beats it is real estate or gold. So that's why people have confidence in real estate and in gold. And this is the role of the central bank to fight inflation, one of the roles of the central bank. Everything is interlinked. But at the same time, you are warning of a bubble. You just warned of a bubble. You said, when you said real estate crazy. But so I want to go back to you on that point, because some experts talked about this in the past few months here in Egypt. And they have different opinions. So would the bubble, if it happens, just touch the high edge real estate, or would it catch up to
I don't expect
everything?
I wouldn't.
If there is a bubble.
Well, okay. I did not use the terminology bubble.
You didn't,
because,
but you're hinting.
No. On the contrary, I don't believe that there is really a bubble. It's maybe close to the bubble. And anyway, my opinion. Actually, it's not an opinion, it's fact on earth, because that's the problem with economics. Economics is a gloomy science, and this is a scientific definition. We are gloomy, okay? Economists are gloomy, because we speak facts on earth. So the idea is that what economics say now is that we will never go into a bubble, so don't worry about the bubble. It might be something close to this, but I don't see that we're going into...
The reason I said this, because you said people are going into real estate like crazy. This is what you said.
Yeah, exactly. But you can see it with all these promotions. How many telephone calls you receive every day on your
Today
mobile?
I just received 2.
Only 2, you're very lucky.
And I don't have money to buy 1/10 of what they are offering anyway.
Exactly. So it's again, that brings us to the same issue. It's how to establish confidence in the system. It's very important. This is the name of the game now. Let me add something else, because you're speaking about controlling inflation, right?
It's the main concern for citizens. Inflation.
It's a straightforward answer. There is no I think. There is I do know, actually. For how many years now we did not succeed in controlling inflation?
Decades.
And who's responsible? The central bank. Okay, let's take the example. I'm not going to speak about the present situation of the central bank, but for how many years the central bank has been ruled by a microeconomist?
Most of the time.
Most of the time. And by the way, the ex-governor of the central bank, he studied economics. Actually, he was my colleague. But from day one till he reached the age of 60, he was only working in banking. He never worked with macroeconomics. It's a mindset. And after 6 or 7 years in the post, he finally found out that it is not so easy to study macroeconomics. Okay? And we're repeating the same mistake again.
Confidence. The relationship between the central bank and banks. How much more confidence do we need in that relationship? Or is there enough confidence?
Between both of them, or the whole system?
The back and forth coordination between them.
The way I see it, it's not an important question.
Okay.
Frankly, I mean, what is more important is the confidence between the banks and the public.
Okay.
But between the central banks and the banks...
Okay. Because we only have a few minutes left. But I just want to stress here that throughout the course of the recent history, at least, we've not heard of any citizen losing his or her money in banks. I mean, it has not happened. Egypt is very solid when it comes to the banking system, when it comes to preserving Egyptians' money.
Now you're bringing me to my nostalgia, okay?
Okay.
Because when I was, let's say, a teenager or university, in my generation, we used only to compare Egypt with Southern Europe, with Spain, with Italy, with South Korea, which was going tête-à-tête avec Egypt, South Korea, okay, with some of the Brazil, with some of these countries. This is nostalgia to me, because now when I speak to my students at the university who are teenagers now, or I mean 20 or whatever, they compare with, sorry to say, Iraq, Syria, Libya, all these, and where is the comparison that we used to live? This is our nostalgia, was not to compare. And then you say, oh, we are much better than I don't know which country. We are much better than that country and this country, which were of no comparison whatsoever during my time with Egypt. So back to, because I don't want it to appear gloomy again, but I'm confirming to the audience, I'm confirming to you that we have the basic infrastructure. Egypt could be one of the top countries, not only in the region. Everything is there. Let us concentrate on establishing confidence. This is the name of the game.
All right. On that note, dear viewers, unfortunately our time is up, but we promise that we'll try to get our distinguished guests again with us here in the program to continue this very important discussion. So on behalf of you, we thank very much Dr. Amr Hamid, the economic consultant and the visiting professor at the AAST, the Arab Academy for Science and Technology. It's been a real pleasure, sir, and we hope to see you again.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Hamid.
Thank you.
And thank you, dear viewers, for watching Business Insider. Goodbye.